I'm really excited to host this webinar on behalf of Innovation Roots with Alistair Cockburn on the heart of Agile. And I'll briefly take you through the introduction of this whole session and how it is going to work. So this is the agenda for this webinar, as you can see here. I'll start with a very quick introduction to Innovation Roots, and then I'll take you through the webinar logistics, and I'll briefly tell you about who Alistair Cockburn is, and then I'll pass it on to Alistair for his talk on the heart of Agile, which will then be followed by question and answer session. So during the session, if you feel you need to ask something, you please drop that question in the chat box. At the end of the session, we'll take on the questions from there. And then this, some of you know us and some of you might know us. Innovation Roots is a leading training and consulting service provider. And we are also publisher of research-driven content design and resources. And we believe in creating the things of great value through self-education and continuous learning. As you see here, we provide the solutions for futuristic organizations, and that includes the world-class agile transformation coaching, assessment, training, and consulting services. And we have the proven Scrum framework, coaching and training for product development teams. And then we have a range of Kanban and DevOps courses as well. So quickly, I'll take you through the webinar logistics. I request everybody to use LAN cable because that is more stable in case of you're using Wi-Fi. I request you to use high quality speakers or headphones for better sound quality. And I request again all of you to please keep your microphones muted. And as I said, question and answer will be taken in the chat box. So whenever you have a question, please enter your question in the chat box. And this webinar will be recorded. I request you all to subscribe to our YouTube channel to find the details, and SlideShare to find the SlideShare later. And we really appreciate all of your cooperation. We all know who Alistair Cockburn is. Dr. Alistair Cockburn is one of the original authors of the Agile Manifesto. He has been voted in the all-time top 150 iTechnologies heroes for his work in use cases and Agile software development. He has co-created the Agile Manifesto, the Declaration of Interdependence, the Agile Project Leadership Network, the International Consortium for Agile, and the Heart of Agile. And today we are going to talk about that. Now over to Alistair. So I need your help, Sole, here.
Hello, everybody. This is Alistair. Sole, just to check, am I coming out okay? Sole will let me know how the audiovisual is going.
That's perfect.
I will now share my screen, so we'll see how this goes. There we go. So Sole, let me know on the side channel there if that's coming up. Yes or no? Sound and video.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Excellent. And I thank you everybody for being muted. Thank you very much for joining. I want to leave plenty of time for questions. And what's on my mind these days for about the last 5 years is the simplification of Agile to its basic form. And I call this the heart of Agile. So I'll give you some slides first to orient you as to what it is that I'm meaning and intending. And you can see what is old news, news that's been around for like almost 20 years now, or 15 years, or a lot of years, and what things are kind of new current topics that we're looking at. I will say that since I've started working and living from the heart of Agile, these 4 words, it really has changed the way that I think about Agile, the way I think about teamwork. My classes now are very different than they were 5 years ago, because these 4 words that you see here are very, very rich. And the 4 words, this is the heart of Agile, is simply collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. So obviously, if you collaborate better, things go better. And if you collaborate worse, things go worse. That seems to be obvious, but we don't put enough attention on the collaboration. Delivery is these days not about delivering one big thing at the end, but delivering lots of little test probes to the world, and then getting feedback about the world, so the delivery is better at the end. And I separated reflect and improve, because we normally put them together and we say reflective improvement or inspect and adapt or something, and the two of them together, and people don't do them very well. So I separated them just to mean really stop and reflect. Just stop doing everything and then stop and reflect. And then you can work out improvements. So those are the 4 words. And the idea is you can literally live from those 4 words, and everything else you can make up on the fly. So my first slide is just a recap of some history. A nice guy, Pierre Hervouet, from France, made this little timeline with somebody whose microphone isn't muted, and I see it from time to time if the name pops up or something like that. Could you mute your microphone, please? Mute your microphone because we're hearing you. Very good. I'll keep going. So Pierre Hervouet commented that in the early days, like in the 1990s, there were about 7 or 8 pre-Agile methodologies, the ones that came together to have a meeting at the manifesto. And in 2001, we did a simplification of all of software development into what would be the Agile manifesto, and it was very focused on software development. Since 2001, there have been dozens of different Agile methodologies and frameworks and things that have come out. And what I'm doing here is another re-simplification. So this is his like quick view of history. And what I'm doing with the Heart of Agile is bringing a unifying principle to all of the Agile methods out there, taking us back to the basics and also opening new doors to the future. So here it is. It's just the 4 words. And all you have to do is just every time something happens, look at which of these 4 words is the word to be focusing on at the moment. And you collaborate to deliver, you reflect to improve, and then you reflect on the collaboration and you improve the collaboration, and you reflect on the delivery and you improve the delivery, and so on. And there are all these different loops there. Now, what's interesting is when you open these up, you can find lots of super interesting topics that are not usually talked about. And one of the things that I want you to get from this is the word software doesn't show up in here at all. What we're doing is to find a way to make this applicable to all initiatives, not just software initiatives. So this Heart of Agile applies to marketing, it applies to business, it applies to any kind of initiative to change the world, improve ecology, get people to boil water, get people to recycle, whatever it is you want, you're trying to change the world. And so the Heart of Agile is applicable to anything, not just software, and that's very important. So the word software doesn't show up in my talk, except for just in a couple of small moments. Also, I want you to see how the topics are really interesting here. From collaborate, look at the 3 topics that I picked out there. Culture being one. So I'll talk a little bit about culture. It's very important. If you want to improve the way the teams deliver things better, you have to pay attention to the culture and what does it mean to have a culture of collaboration or not. When you want to talk about improving collaboration, you have to talk about trust. And the questions now are, how do you improve trust? What improves? What doesn't improve trust? And you can see that's a very, very big topic right there. And then there's the actual act of collaboration, and we have some fairly new results on how to improve collaboration. All of that's in Collaborate, and most of that does not show up very much in the normal Agile literature. Now, on the Deliver is sort of the standard things that we encounter in the Agile world. the internal flow is all of the lean Kanban kinds of topics about how to deliver things. The new topic, I'd say new for the last about 3 or 4 years, is the idea of delivering not to make money, but simply to learn better how the world works and how our idea or how our initiative is going to fit the world as it works. So probes. So another synonym for deliver would be probe. We're probing into the world. And so that's deliver for learning. And then, of course, deliver for income is pretty normal. That's old school stuff. In reflect, there's two kinds of reflection. It's reflecting is about gaining insight. So we're trying to gain insight into everything. And so we introspect, we ask, how do people feel? What do they think? But also there's a lot of data, and especially in the software world, when you deploy to the web, there's just like unbounded amounts of data, so you can learn things from the data. And then improve, of course, means you have to take on the topic of how do we change, what kind of experiments can you roll back, and so on. Now, we can expand these a little bit more, and I just want to show you the kinds of topics that come up. So under culture, the first thing that shows up is the word rewards. And it's very interesting because if you talk about collaboration, you soon have to talk about how are the big bosses being rewarded? How are the executive bonuses being handed out? Because very often the big bosses get rewarded in conflicting ways. So if one is in charge of, let's say, quantity of items sold, and the other is in charge of quality, they can't both win. They're not, their bonus plans, the reward structures are deliberately set in opposition. And so that gets in the way of collaboration because the people under them then can't collaborate either. So when I go around the world, I end up talking to the big bosses about their bonus programs and how can they arrange their executive bonuses so that everybody down in the entire organization can collaborate. Also inside of rewards, you have to talk about the annual appraisals. How are employees evaluated at the end of the year? And if they're not specifically evaluated on the quality of their collaboration, then of course they're not going to. So suddenly the annual evaluation, work evaluation, becomes very important inside of improving the output of organizations. So these are now core inside of the heart of Agile. And I'll jump into a couple of things around trust, and I'll show you collaboration cards and so on. So I'll just step through some of the elements of this. And I'm going to jump into the deliver just to show these three elements: internal flow, a delivery for learning, and delivery for income. So the first one is quite interesting. It's straight off borrowing off of the Toyota production system, the manufacturing of cars. And it's not obvious that a mental social activity like a business or a piece of design would look at all like manufacturing cars. But it turns out that if we look at the atomic building block of an organization as being decisions, then we see that people pass decisions to each other in a kind of a flow. So the sponsors say, we want, our master initiative is to do this. That has decisions, and they pass it to designers, and the designers do something, and the builders do something, and then testers do something. And so everybody is making decisions, and everybody is linking decisions to, of other people. And it starts to look like a car manufacturing line. And in fact, the interesting thing is when you do that, you see that it has all the same mathematical properties of people working in decisions, mental decisions, as it does with car parts. And so when you write, say a 300-page requirements document, that has a lot of decisions, and it looks like sending a big batch of work into the factory. And we know by now that creates difficulty inside the flow of the factory. So that's why the Agile people try to work in user stories and in short chunks so that they don't have lots of decisions flowing around, but they have very small amounts of decisions flowing through the network, and they can get corrections on a few decisions, and without anybody working faster. Specifically, the overall flow of the factory, of the organization, of whomever the working team is, becomes faster and more responsive and has better results. So this is very interesting, this concept of using decisions as an atomic building block for looking at the flow of decisions through the organization. And I have to say, this is old news. This has been around since 2004, 2005. It was already in my book in 2006. So although many people haven't seen it, and it's very profound, in fact, it's about 15 years old. So we'll get to some newer ideas here. Inside of here is we're going to keep going on this idea of decisions as the building blocks of an initiative of any kind, and look at this curve of learning. So if you have, in this one, I'll just bring it all up here. If you have people that are working in a sort of a classical big bang integration, big bang delivery, whether it's a marketing initiative that all goes out at one time, or software that gets integrated all at one time, or any product that gets released to the market all at one time, the first part, until you release it to the market, until you do that big integration, there are all these decisions that people have been making along the way that have a certain rate of errors. So you might have, let's say, in software, you might have 100,000 lines or 1 million lines of code. There are maybe 10, 20,000 errors in there, including who's our target market, including, does this technology work, and all of these things. So at the moment, there's no way to get feedback on those until you really release it. And then these 10,000 errors all, pop out at you. So you get a learning curve. Learning happens late, and we don't like that. What we want to do is to learn early and learn often. And here what we do is, you see that little L shape I have there. That is the breakage, right? The discovery of errors in our decision making. And we can never get rid of errors in our decision making. And what we want to do is be very deliberate, if we could, in an artful way, of saying, what would we like to learn about? And if we do that in an artful way, then our learning goes up rapidly. And so its risk reduces over time as we learn more and more. So in a sense, there's a period in the project where, although we're attempting to deliver business value, we're really thinking a lot about reducing risk and maximizing learning. And then when you have a lot of knowledge, there's less risk, and then life just becomes safer. Well, I'll put it that way. There are 4 things that we're trying to learn about. We're learning about what business we're in, what's the business initiative, who's the target market, what's the financial model, all of those types of things. And so you would specifically do experiments around the business model. Now, in terms of years, this came out with the lean startup movement around 2012. So this information is about 7 years old now. And lean startup has been allowing small businesses to experiment with their ideas in this very extreme way of who's our target market, what's our business model, what will people pay for, all of that. So business learning. Technical learning is the usual things like, will our technology work? What's the scalability, security, defect rates, all of that kind of thing, ordinary. Social learning is very important. In this model, then you would be asking the 2 questions. The first is, did we hire the right people? As in, did the people that we have working on the project, do they actually know how to do this? Are they capable of doing this? But also in the learning section is, it takes time for people to learn how to work together. So you actually put items into the schedule to help people learn to work better. And then the last one is, how long is it going to take to do this, to build this, and how much is it going to cost? So there are specific experiments and things you can do early on to reduce the risk and to learn what's the cost schedule. So those are the 4 buckets. Inside that pink area, learn and reduce risk. we're learning about our business model, the technology, the people who are working, and how long will it take to get this built. Then, so that's the deliver part, right? So if I just back up here just for a split second, very quickly, there, that's what it is, just showing the delivery. And just deliver for the final thing or stage delivery, I'm jumping over. We don't have time for that. That's kind of old news. I want to get back to now, excuse me one second, a piece of collaboration. So I'll go back to collaboration for a minute. And about, I guess about 13 years ago, I did a study on can you actually improve collaboration specifically? And I found these as a piece of the research, very specific movements that individual people on the team can do to improve the mood for collaboration. We call these collaboration cards. So here you see 4 of them. There's this 4, we now have 5 suits. You want to lift other people so that people feel braver. We want to get people to feel braver and feel more powerful so that they will offer ideas. So you want to lift others, you need to get results, you need to increase safety, you want to add energy. There are about 18 of these cards by now that we have. And so some of the things that we do are to have workshops or include these in sessions, retrospectives, and all kinds of workshops to help people learn to collaborate better. So this is, again, these are things that are now we include inside the Heart of Agile as ways of improving collaboration. I want to get to a culture piece here that's very important. We talked about rewards, but the nature of the culture that we're building is different than before. It used to be very command-oriented. Cultures, Agile in general, brings a lot more, I won't say democratic, but decentralized cultures where everybody is invited to contribute in different ways. And that changes the culture. So there's certain cultural discussions that you have to have about what will work or don't work. One of the newest topics, I would say, within the last few years, so not much known, is this concept of guest leadership. And what I would say there is, if you host a party and at your house, you are the host and you invite some guests. But if they're your friends and they see that, let's say, the bread has run out and there's more bread in the kitchen, they may go back to the kitchen and bring out some more bread, or they may refill the tea or whatever the drinks are. And in the US, it's quite common for someone to say, hey, we're out of beer or wine, and organize a run to the store and buy more beer or wine. So at those times, it's not the host who's the leader, but actually guests become leaders for just a few moments. And this idea of guest leadership then comes around. And that becomes important in this decentralized cultures that we're building, is that everybody feels free to jump in at some moment and become the leader, just for, it could be for a day, it could be for 15 minutes, it could be for a week, it could be for one particular initiative. And if everybody does that, then the whole group becomes much more powerful. They don't just wait for the boss to tell them what to do. And here's, for me, the best example I've seen. I picked this up off the internet, and this was in Brazil. And there you see a chain of people going out into the ocean. And there was a family having some trouble out in the ocean. And rather than somebody swimming out to get them, somebody on the beach decided to form a human chain. And they made 80 people come together into a chain. And then they went out and reached the family that was having trouble, and then brought them back in. So whoever organized that was not a boss, was not the lifeguard. It was just somebody on the beach who decided to do that. That person was being the guest leader for that period of time. So we're looking for initiative taken by, just anybody. And that's a cultural piece. Just to show you, again, a bit about when you live with just these 4 words and you just talk about collaboration over and over and over again, you get to some very interesting kinds of discussions. And I want to jump to this one where from the 1970s, they have these words, theory X and theory Y. And theory X is kind of a forcing model where the view was that, you know, workers are lazy, so management has to tell them what to do and force them and push them and so on. And that was predominant in physical work, shoveling coal or, you know, cutting steel or moving wood or something like that. Theory Y was coined as a phrase when the view was that workers are not lazy, they're motivated, and mostly what you need to do is give them the means to do what they should do, and they'll be happy to do that then. And so I call that a choosing model or a pull model. And so we could say one's a forcing and the other's a choosing, or one's a pushing and the other's a pulling. And the thing is that physical work, if you add stress and yell at people, might go faster, but mental work gets worse. When you yell at people, they don't think better, they don't become more creative. So what that means is we're trying to create quiet spaces, quiet environments, peaceful environments, so people don't feel threatened. And in the feeling non-threatened, then they can be more creative and work better and produce better results. This has an interesting consequence, which is that many companies are very pressure oriented at the top. Either the big boss wants, you know, results, or even if the big boss is not, if it's a public company, the stockholders, Wall Street, are very aggressive on the upper management of companies. And so that's the theory X model being put on the upper executives. And what we're trying to do is to create this quiet space at the bottom, sort of a choosing, permission, freedom, a quiet culture, so people can think and work quietly at the bottom. And that means necessarily somebody in the middle of the hierarchy has to take the pressure from the above and generate a quiet space underneath. So managers have a role to do that, and it's not a comfortable assignment. So I call that person the push to pull umbrella. All I'm illustrating here is with the heart of Agile, it's just 4 words. But if you live inside the word collaborate over and over and over again, you find very interesting topics that will affect the degree to which you can collaborate. So if any of you choose to, you know, like pursue the heart of Agile as a thought experiment in your work or in your company, you just keep looking at these words collaborate over and over and over again, and you find interesting topics. Now the last thing I think I'll bring up is just inside the reflection. This is very new within the last few years. We're bringing in from psychotherapy and coaching a thing called solutions-focused coaching, solution-focused psychotherapy, what we call future focus. And it's a way of introspecting. It's very, very powerful. The idea here is we focus all of our conversations on what we want to have present in the future. And you guys are in India, and Gandhi is famous for saying, be the change you want to see in the world. But actually, it's very difficult to be the change you want to see in the world. That's very brave, very difficult. If you follow this form of psychotherapy coaching, you don't actually have to be it. You only have to notice it. You only have to look for it. So what they found since the late 1970s, this has been a deliberate strategy in coaching and psychology and psychotherapy, is just to have people pay attention to, in particular in the social realm, pay attention to the behaviors they want to have present. A way to think about this is if you focus on, let's say, that people are being critical and negative all the time, if you focus on that, you'll notice all of the negativity and you won't notice the positivity. You won't notice the people being nice to each other. You won't notice the small things that are going well. So this way of talking and coaching is to say, sharpen your senses and notice every little good thing, every piece of collaboration, every piece of trust. And as you notice those things, you'll think about them, then you'll notice them more, then you'll start to enact them, and you'll actually pull yourself into having more of those things. And you do that at the individual level and at the team level. So there's a practice that we do there in the workshops, which is describe when things are working well, what I will notice is, and then you list the things that you will notice, and then you start looking for where they already exist. So you list and notice what's already present. So notice what you want to have present is part of this future-focused conversation that we're bringing into the reflect and improve section of the Heart of Agile. So it's very, very modern, very up-to-date kinds of things. My point out of this, and then we'll get to the questions, is we can make everything arbitrarily complicated. The world is complicated, but you don't have to. The whole point of the Heart of Agile is that you just need to have these 4 words. And everything that happens, you'll find that you can apply. Are we in the collaboration discussion? Are we in the delivery discussion? Is there something about reflect here that we can benefit from? How are we going to do the improvements? So that's the Heart of Agile, and that's the presentation part of what I wanted to do. So with that, maybe I can stop sharing my screen and share my, let me see, boom, and then I can just put me on the screen. Sole, if you could let me know. Am I on the screen?
Yes, you are.
Cool. Very good. So if I look into the chat box, let's go see what we have here. Some questions. Very good. Thank you very much. Let's see what we have here.
Hey, Alistair, shall I help you with the questions?
I'm looking at the chat stream right now. And let's see here. Somebody wrote, please define collaboration, its significance over cooperation and co-working, and how the world works. You mean how to look at and see problems. I'm going to take this last question first, how the world works. So the world works differently than however we think that it works. So we have an idea, and it could be anything around health. It could be anything around ecology, recycling. It could be anything around, is anybody going to buy our product? What's our business model? All of these things, we think we have an idea how the world works, but in fact, the world works differently. So as you saw with the learning, we're trying to actually stick our finger into the world for a little bit to see how the world works. We do a baby delivery. You deliver something to a few people and you watch the reaction and you go, oh, that's not what I had in mind. And then you make some changes. And so this probe, right, stick the finger into the world and just test it and then see how people react, is a baby delivery. So probe and delivery are synonyms. And so what we're trying to do is find all these assumptions that we made that turn out not to be correct assumptions. That's one. I see another one that says, elaborate on value, especially business value. What other values are there? What are values that testers ignore and why? What I want to say about the value is this. The person who creates the initiative in the first place speaks some sentences and they say, if we do this, then people will buy our product. And at that moment, the value is people buying the product. Or let's say we're trying to improve sanitation somewhere. And we say, if we do this, then people will, whatever, boil water, wash something, do better sanitation. And so the value that I'm looking at testing is, will the people do the things that we think we want them to do? And that would be the real value. So when you deliver value, you drop into their lives something that then they will react in the way that you have in mind, whether that's buy the product or use the product, or wash the clothes or boil the water or recycle the thing or take the train instead of the car, or whatever change you're having to do. And I hope you see that a lot of us are in the software world, but this has nothing specific to do with software. We can use it also in software, but we can use it also in other things. Someone wrote about the miracle question. The miracle question is part of the solution focus coaching. It's a standard phrase. It just helps people get themselves into the future. People are very used to talking about whatever problems that they have, and to get people to go into the future. We say, imagine you wake up tomorrow and unbeknownst to you, somehow your problem has been fixed, whatever the problem is that you're worrying about. So now let's say at work, the problem has been fixed and you go to work. What would you notice that tips you off that, hey, things are working well now, right? Whatever that problem was isn't there, and the goodness is there. What would you notice that tips you off? So they call this the miracle question. It's the standard question that people use to start this discussion. And just say, let's say your boss always was yelling at you or whatever, and you were very nervous about talking to your boss. And you wake up one day and you just know that this problem has been solved. That's the miracle question. Now, what will you notice in the way that you walk, in the way that you talk, when you know that this problem has gone away? So Nupur, do you want to, I'm just going to go down this list, but is there any question that you picked up while you were listening to the talk?
I think we'll just finish off with these questions, and I can bring those at the end, because some of it are already covered. So let's just go ahead with this list.
Very good. I'll do that. There's a very good question here. Ideas which work in some countries won't work, or are difficult to make work in other countries. Absolutely. That is been true for Agile since the beginning. And the biggest one that we run into all the time is this concept, and this is inside of the collaboration, and it's this concept of being able to give bad news to somebody. It's part of that decentralized, I won't say democratic, but it's not, but that decisions are being made in a decentralized way. That is not something you can put into every culture. You can just imagine. And in India, there's probably, hierarchical stuff. In Japan, we asked people, can you co-locate your developers? Can you do this? Can you pair program? Can you do testing? Can you do this? And finally, we asked, can you give your boss bad news? And the person looked at us with big eyes and said, no. We said, well, then you're going to have trouble, because everything we talk about is based around giving bad news early. You want the bad news early so you have the most time available to fix it. But if in your culture you can't speak up, you can't give bad news, you can't talk to your boss, you can't tell your client that things are going to be late, then you're going to get stuck with the problems. The problems won't get fixed. So that's a cultural thing that's very, very tough. France, for example, is very hierarchical. And the people in the organizations are very protective of their territory. So that makes all of these Agile programs difficult to install. All things in Southeast Asia around loss of face. Everything is anchored onto, in the collaboration, is first of all, can everybody speak up to offer a good idea? And how easy is it to announce that something's wrong early? The thing that's wrong is wrong. And it'll be wrong forever. The question is, how early can you discover it? So the question here is, ideas which work in some countries won't work in other, or are difficult, and that's very, very true. Kieran wrote in here, as an example, open office work culture works fine in the US and Europe, but doesn't work in India. The office structure is one, but just literally getting people to speak about things that they see is difficult. And yeah, and so here's an interesting riddle for you. The things I talk about, discovering bad news early, this is a fact. This isn't like an opinion or a wish to have or something like this. This is like physics. This is like the physics of mental collaborative activities. Things are going wrong. And if you don't find them, they'll just be wrong forever. And the world will tell you when you finally deliver, that was wrong. So you want to find those things that are wrong as early as possible. And now you say, in these cultures, it's more difficult to say that something is wrong, whether it's loss of face, whether it's hierarchy, whether it's some kind of social fabric. That is true. It doesn't change the fact that something is wrong and you have to find it. What this means is to play this game of finding bad news early is easier in some cultures than it is in others. It doesn't mean that you're excused from it. It just means that, let's say in the Scandinavian cultures, in the Scandinavian countries, they have an easier time with this than most of the rest of the world. And that's where we go with that. So every culture has to adapt all of these ideas to see what is the best they can do inside their cultural rules if they understand the intention of this. Someone asks about retrospection and introspection. There are two that are very simple. The one that I do in retrospectives, to do a process retrospective and to see what to improve, I ask only two questions. The first is, what is working well such that as we make changes, we don't want to lose that, whatever that could be. And in many places, it's, people get together and go out for lunch every Thursday, let's just say. That's not an official rule. It's just something that works, and you want to make sure you don't destroy that. Or the seating arrangement works well, or the timing works well, or something works well. And so there's only two things that we ask. What do you want to keep? And the next is, what do you want to try next? So you can, we have got this problem and we have that problem. That's okay, but what do you want to try for the next week or 2 weeks and see if it makes anything go better? So in the retrospection, I ask these two questions. What do you want to keep? In other words, don't lose that. And what do you want to try differently? And you should be trying something differently. Every week or two, there should be some new experiment. Every few weeks, some tiny experiment. Let's try this, let's try that, let's try this, let's try that. And that gets the team to move and make little micro changes to their working habits to improve little by little. Some might be big, some might be small. So that's one technique. We call that keep this, try this. Keep this, try this. The other one was the one that I showed, which is literally just discuss when things are working well here, what are those things? And what would we notice that indicate to us that those things are actually present? And then you just look at them, focus on them, and notice them. So those are the two simplest techniques you can apply right away for that. So I'm looking at the time. I've got 10 minutes left and I have to go, but let's see here. My thoughts on Agile chaos. Yeah, I think there's a lot of Agile chaos. I think there's a lot of frameworks. What I'm trying to do with the heart of Agile is just make this very, very simple and very broad. So I don't tell you that you have to collaborate in a particular way or use a time box or a technique or this. Just keep trying to improve the collaboration, keep making the little delivery part smaller and get the feedback, and then periodically reflect and improve. Yeah, there's a question here about appraisal. It's an excellent comment. Appraisal happens once a year and is important, obviously. When all members in a team contribute, rewarding just one of them causes turmoil and can affect a project. It will be great if we have an appraisal methodology too. Now, first of all, I agree with all of that. That's very true. What is interesting is I go around the world and I ask different places, every company I go to, if they're doing what looks like good agile work, I say, tell me how you do your annual appraisal, or if you do it quarterly or whatnot. Nobody thinks they have a good appraisal methodology. And I've been asking this question for 10 years or more. So it's very interesting. Even places that are known for being, good agile working places won't say that they have a good appraisal methodology. My summary of the situation is that there's two things you evaluate people on. The first is allegedly they have a skill or an ability that they're contributing to the project, and you say, are you using that? Are you getting value from that? And the second one is the team a better team because that person is present? That's it. So the quality of the collaboration, the benefits that come from that person helping other people should be one of the top two questions. I don't have a company. I don't run a company. So this is my suggestion, but somebody has to try it out. But it seems if collaboration is even the third item, it will not get paid attention to. It has to be like the second item. The presentation PDF, yes. Nupur, I'll send you a link.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Online. Actually, if you go to the website, heartofagile.com, there's a section in there called library. And in library, there's a thing called presentations. And in there, you'll find the presentation from Denmark, which is the best one I have. So you can go to the Heart of Agile website and find it, but I'll send it to Nupur.
Yeah, I'll upload it on the channels and it will be available to you also. Don't worry, I'll update once it is there.
And the recording of the session will be available. That'll be wonderful. I'll put that on social media.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Appraisals again. Appraisals happen to individuals. And so what I want to say again about the appraisals, and this is at every level. This is up to the executives. When I visit and talk to executives, I stress over and over that the executives have to have a common result that they're trying to attain, that they all get evaluated on the same result, therefore that they get a better result if they help each other and a worse result if they don't help each other. And at every level down the hierarchy, everybody in that group should be rewarded and evaluated on the total effect of the total team. There's a question here. Manifesto Principle 6 talks about face-to-face collaboration, but what could be an approach when we have distributed global agile team? The thing is, now we're in this collaboration again. Collaboration just simply works best when people are sitting next to each other. There's just no way around it. And we live in a world where people are distributed. And when you're distributed, technology is your friend. The always on camera, the always on microphone, the giant screens, having team rooms with huge screens and always on cameras really helps the sense of being present and being physically connected with people. But nothing replaces the actual act of flying to some place and being with the team or sitting together. And then when you distribute, then the people talk better together. So technology is your friend when you're distributed, and you're trying to basically simulate being physically present so you can see the faces, you can see the hands and everything. And just imagine even this talk, if you didn't see my hands, my face, and you only had the voice, it would still be missing some things. There's a fun question, and I'll take this when I get to the end. I have someone posted a really great personal question for me to end on. Let me see. What does a Heart of Agile consultant bring to the table? the thing that the Heart of Agile consultant would bring to the table is that they're practiced at using these 4 words to find topics that are important inside of a group. So if you bring a Scrum person, they'll say, you know, do you have your 2-week sprints? Are you doing your daily stand-up? They'll check all of the practices. But somebody who's a Heart of Agile consultant will look at the bigger picture and just say, how is the collaboration working? What can we do to improve the collaboration? Any topic, any level. It's very wide open. And same on the delivery, and bringing these practices in that I showed you, the collaboration cards, the solution focus or future focused kind of conversations, attention to probes, looking at the pull-push cultures. Those things that we're finding are important these days. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can pick. It says here, okay, very good. Great question here. How do we make people more confident? And that's super important. And I don't know how you do it, but it's a topic that when you get into collaboration as a key topic, you become very concerned with this question. There are people who are shy, there are people who are frightened, and then you really have to work on the culture a lot so that it becomes safe for shy people to express an idea. So you might make the ideas anonymous, you might make them written, you might take turns. You do things so that the people who otherwise are shy get to contribute, and then you get the ideas out of everybody. All right, I'm going to end with this one question. Someone asked me very nicely, how many dance forms has Dr. Alistair mastered by now? So I really like that someone bothered to ask a personal question in here. That's very nice of you. So I find, for me, I travel around the world for 6 years, actually. I didn't have a home, and I would go and spend 7 months in the Northern Hemisphere, 5 months in the Southern Hemisphere, and 3 months in Europe, and 3 months in Argentina. And I started with salsa when I was in Europe, salsa bachata, and then I went to Argentina and learned Argentinian tango and fell in love with that and spent 4 or 5 years really trying to learn that. And then lately, I've been going to Portugal, and there's a African dance form similar to tango, which is called kizomba. So I've been learning kizomba. So we've got those ones and the foxtrot and all the other ones. But yeah, anything that looks like dance is good for me. So there we are, Nupur. We're at 11 o'clock, and I have to roll on. So anything you'd like to say for closing up?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you, Alistair, for taking time out and being so patient and sharing so many valuable insights with us. I'm sure all of us who is on the call and some of those who has missed it were eagerly looking forward for this session, and we're really, really grateful to you for making some time for it. So thank you so much for it, first of all. And then
I'd like to thank you for setting it up. And I also want to make sure that Soleg Pinter gets recognition.
Yeah.
She's my sort of co-partner in the Heart of Agile, and lives in Belgium. She's from Argentina, so she specializes in Europe and Latin America. She's one of the ones who does solution focus and collaboration cards all the time. So she's a good person to be connected with.
Yeah, I'm really thankful to Sole also for all the support all throughout, and it's been wonderful working with her as well along with you. And I would like to thank all the participants also for being so patient with us, having a technical glitch in between and understanding that, and is still trying to make it to the webinar. So I'm really, really thankful for you guys to make it on a Monday evening. Thank you so much. And we're really looking forward to host you in India, Alistair, in your future. And let's see when it happens. Thank you so much, everybody. And if at all, if you have any questions left, I would request you to pass it on to me. And if possible, I'll try getting it answered by you, Alistair. Is that possible? Yeah.
Sure.
So we will try to figure it out. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alistair. Have a nice day. Bye.